sometimes college football is about the history. And for that, we're going to get a little perspective on history from Mark Schipper joining us now, college football historian, author. There is a great article. We'll tweet it out from the show, and you can check it out from fitdowncfb.com. That really, it's a long read that you need to read because it gives you such great insight onto the history of conferences and really that we've been here before. So, Mark, I appreciate you joining me. I appreciate your work on this. When you dive back into the history of college football and how we got to where we are, why didn't they learn more lessons about conferences and how to make this process easier and better?
I don't know if there are lessons to be learned necessarily because of how the game's set up. College conferences are classic frenemies. They're friends until they're not friends, until it becomes time to stab each other in the back. They compete over limited resources. And particularly in the era when media contracts are what they are, those are extremely valuable properties. So until college football, I guess if there is a lesson to learn, college football should have unified itself as a game a long time ago. But had they done that, the sport would have made sense, and it wouldn't have been half as fun as it's been for the last 152 years.
Oh, you're right about that. One thing that really hit me in reading your work was just talking about conference commissioners and just the process for all of this. Everybody that represents conferences, how we even got here. In your mind, when you look at the past and you look at the present, what does it take to make a great conference commissioner?
Well, great question. That's what the piece gets into, is there are essentially two periods of history for the conference commissioner. The original conference commissioner was a policeman. He was the sheriff in town. And it was awkward for him because the people that paid his salary were the people he was investigating. And the people he was investigating needed to stay squeaky clean in order to earn the biggest prizes in the sport of college football. So that early conference commissioner, he policed his league. He worked with the teams to suss out problems and punish schools. And that process was essentially just approved by the NCAA at the yearly meeting. So the conferences essentially ran themselves. In the piece, I argue, when the PCC blew up, the modern conference commissioner emerged. The modern conference commissioner needs to be a well-connected deal maker. He's a modern media man. He's a promoter. He's a mediator. He's good at getting his schools together and forming an allied strategy for the war that is the media marketplace. So when you look over the history of the sport, the two types of conference commissioners, they're essentially starkly opposed to one another. They're totally different jobs.
Well, and that makes me just look at the landscape we're in now when you think about it and the conflict that exists naturally. Like, I can't figure out what a commissioner's most valuable job is in the current environment. Is it to negotiate the biggest media rights deal humanly possible, or is it to find a way to make all of these schools kumbaya together? Because I'm not sure you can do all of that at once right now.
Yeah, it's a balance, I think. He's got to be a facilitator. I don't even know. I think it depends on the guy. I think Kevin Warren of the Big Ten approaches it differently than George Kliavkoff of the Pac-12. I think Kliavkoff is a perfect guy for this era. Unfortunately, I believe the Pac-12 brought him in after the torpedoes had hit the hull of the ship out west, and he was in kind of a losing situation from the very beginning. But I think it's a balance. You want a guy, I think getting people on the same page is probably really critical to moving forward. And then once you're on the same page, then it's like Walter Byers used to be for the NCAA. You go into these media rights deals, man, and you just go to war with the network. You get as much as you can from them and as favorable a terms as you can get, and then you try to survive to the next round.
And that gets interesting. We're talking to Mark Schipper. By the way, follow him at @TheMarkSchipper on Twitter. When you talk about different styles and different approaches, I keep looking at the concept of mega conferences that has ruled college football for the last year or so in the conversation. But that would require somebody could get Sankey and Warren to play nice together in the sandbox. And you're talking about two different people with different styles, possibly different ideas. Can they play well together, or does a third party really have to come in if that's ever going to happen where they negotiate together?
Well, over the history of college sports, when college leagues and universities will work together is when it's in both of their best interests to do so. And when it's not, it is a treacherous cloak and dagger kind of game. I mean, they will sell each other out for anything that they perceive to be to advantage to their league and disadvantage to others. So I think if college football ever wants to work together, and who knows, what I've been saying for the last 20 months or so is conditions are just totally ripe for revolution. This could be a full-scale revolution, and the whole thing just goes sideways over the next 10 or 15 years. But the only way for them to work together is to decide they're going to form a single major college football entity, a super league type institution, and then sort of re-break it up again, which ironically enough could end up again with sort of geographical sanity if they go to a super league style thing, because right now it's all sort of philosophical pairings and market pairings, and you can see what that map looks like. It's a mess.
Anytime I talk to somebody that puts as much work into history as you have into this article, I'm always curious, when you were researching and when you started to write, what was something that really stood out to you that made you say, I can't believe that happened?
A bunch of stuff. I always, with college football, when I tweet stuff out, I always say to understand college football, you have to look to the past. I think one of the things that's most amazing to me about college football is how similar it has been since 1869. The tension between universities and their football teams has always been essentially the same, which is differing levels on what universities are willing to take from the now full-fledged entertainment property that's attached to their schools. I will say this, in this article that I wrote now, the thing that jumped out to me most was what a tenuous relationship, as great a league as the Pac-12 was, the PCC, all its iterations, as great a league as that's been historically, they were really bound together on very shaky ground. It's a strange league if you look at it. Seattle, the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and then a set of far-flung small college towns, Eugene, Corvallis, Pullman, Tucson, Arizona. Tempe is a pretty good metropolitan size, but they didn't get there until 1978, the Arizona schools. So big metropolitan markets and small rural college markets all have different needs, and it's always been a balance with these guys, which is why this is not the first time UCLA and USC have threatened to leave, but it is the first time they actually went through with it.
It's great writing. Y'all, part of the reason you guys love college football is the history of it. I found myself riveted just going through and seeing all that Mark was just addressing and how much the past is influencing what we're seeing right now. Follow him on Twitter at @TheMarkSchipper. We'll tweet the article out too so that everybody can find it. Mark, really appreciate your time. Great work by you, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Hey, Jason, I appreciate it. Can I say one thing here? If you want to follow the college football journey, go to Down CFB on Twitter. You're going to have a lot more fun there.
Yeah, it is also a great follow. I'll tweet that out also for everybody to see right now. Appreciate you. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thanks, Jason. Take care of yourself.
And there is an element of the past that I just found myself just soaking in with the article. I think you guys will really enjoy it, and I think it's a little reminder that much like so much of what we deal with as a country at times and what we deal with as people as times, it's amazing how much we have to look back at the history to have a better understanding of what we're dealing with today and why we're dealing with it today.